It's 11:35 p.m. on July 29th, 1945. Commander Mochitsura Hashimoto stands motionless in the cramped conning tower of the IR-58. The periscope eyepiece is pressed hard against his face. His breath is slow, controlled, almost silent. Outside, the Philippine Sea lies flat and black under a swollen full moon. The cruiser submarine, 357 feet of steel wrapped in that strange rubber coating, drifts forward at barely 3 knots. No wake, no sound beyond the faint electric hum of the motors. Hashimoto is 38 years old. He has spent most of his adult life under the sea. Pearl Harbor in 1941. Patrols through the Solomons. Raids along the China coast. Each mission has left its mark. Deeper lines around the eyes. A permanent tightness in the jaw. Tonight the war feels different. The radio traffic is thin. The Americans are winning everywhere, yet orders are orders. Find targets, sink them. Inside the boat the air's stale, thick with the smell of hot oil, unwashed uniforms, and the faint metallic tang of battery acid. 30 men wait in near total silence. They know better than to speak unless spoken to. Hashimoto has 19 of the newest, fastest torpedoes in the world waiting in the forward tubes, oxygen-driven, nearly 50 knots, wakeless, invisible under moonlight. 6 Caton manned suicide torpedoes sit unused in their special racks aft. He refused to launch them tonight. One clean, conventional attack is enough for a single ship. He sweeps the periscope slowly across the horizon. Then he stops. A silhouette, long, low, 4 funnels, moving fast. "Target bearing 045, he whispers, voice barely above a breath. "Range approximately 10,000 meters. Heavy cruiser." The executive officer leans over the plot board and marks the position with a grease pencil. No one else moves. Hashimoto feels the familiar calm settle into his bones. This is not the first time he has seen an American warship through crossed wires. It will not be the last. At 11:48 p.m., he makes the decision. Dive to periscope depth. Silent running. The diving planes tilt. The hull angles downward with a soft groan. Electric motors take over from the diesels. The boat slips beneath the surface like a shadow sinking into deeper shadow. 60 feet. The depth gauge clicks softly. Red battle lights bathe every face in blood. Hashimoto keeps the periscope raised. The target is closing steadily. 17 knots on a perfect straight course. No evasive turns. No zigzag pattern. Either arrogance or ignorance. Perhaps both. He studies the silhouette again. 4 stacks. Heavy main battery turrets fore and aft. He decides it must be an Idaho-class battleship. The navigator nods agreement. The firing solution is already coming together in Hashimoto's head. Bearing, range, speed, angle. On the bow. Simple mathematics. Deadly mathematics. At 12:02 a.m., July 30th, the range has shrunk to 1,640 yards. Point blank for a submarine. Hashimoto's voice is flat, almost conversational. "Torpedo room. Standby tubes 1 through 6. Fan spread. 2-second firing intervals. Fire on my mark." A heartbeat of silence. Then 6 sharp, pneumatic hisses tear through the pressure hull. The I-58 rocks backward as 18,000 pounds of high explosive leave the tubes in rapid succession. The torpedoes streak away at terrifying speed, leaving no trail of bubbles to betray them. Hashimoto never lowers the periscope. He wants to witness the result. 12 seconds pass. The first detonation lights the night like a second sun. A column of white water erupts forward of the cruiser's bridge. The bow lifts high, then plunges, torn steel screaming. 65 feet of the ship simply disappears. The second torpedo strikes amidships. Blinding fireball climbs 200 feet into the sky, feeding on spilled aviation gasoline and the forward powder magazine. The cruiser's spine snaps with a sound that carries across miles of open water. A deep, guttural crack, like the planet itself breaking. Hashimoto's voice remains calm. 2 hits confirmed. The big ship rolls hard to starboard, 45 degrees in under a minute. Sailors pour over the rails, dark figures tumbling into the sea. The stern rises until the propellers, still spinning furiously, claw at the moonlit sky. For one impossible moment, the entire cruiser stands perfectly vertical, a black dagger against the stars. Then she slides downward, bow first, vanishing into the deep with a final sucking roar. 12 minutes. From first impact to complete disappearance. Hashimoto lowers the periscope with deliberate slowness. Take her deep. 300 feet. Silent running. The I-58 angles downward again. The hull groans under increasing pressure. No depth charges follow. No sonar pings. The Americans have other problems tonight. At 3:17 a.m., Hashimoto orders the boat to the surface to ventilate. Fresh air rushes in through the opened hatches. The lookouts scan the horizon. Nothing but an enormous oil slick spreading across the water, and faint, terrible sounds carried on the wind. Screams, prayers, men calling names into the darkness. Hashimoto stands on the bridge for 30 seconds, listening. Then he turns his face away. Secure from surfacing. Set course for Kure. Maximum speed. 6 days later, August 5th, 1945, the I-58 creeps into Kure Naval Base under a sky heavy with smoke. Hashimoto steps onto the pier expecting the usual debrief, perhaps even congratulations. Instead, he walks into a nation that no longer exists in the form he remembers. Hiroshima is gone. A city of 300,000 people reduced to ash and shadow in a single flash. His wife, his 2 small sons, his aging parents. All of them erased in an instant. The bomb that killed them had been carried across the Pacific inside the very cruiser he had just sent to the bottom. Hashimoto does not speak for 3 full days. He sits in his tiny cabin, staring at the bulkhead, seeing nothing. December 1945. Washington Navy Yard courtroom. The room is packed shoulder to shoulder with officers, reporters, photographers. Flashbulbs pop like distant gunfire. Commander Mochitsura Hashimoto walks down the aisle in full Imperial Japanese Navy dress uniform, the only man in the room still wearing the Rising Sun emblem. American captains stare with open hostility. Some clench their fists. Others simply look away. The United States Navy has flown him halfway around the world to testify against one of their own. Captain Charles Butler McVay III, commanding officer of the lost cruiser Indianapolis. The court-martial is meant to answer one question. Who is to blame for the greatest loss of life at sea in American naval history? Hashimoto takes the stand. The prosecutor approaches, voice clipped. Commander, would a zigzag course have prevented you from hitting the ship? Hashimoto meets the eyes of Captain McVay across the room. McVay sits very still, face pale but composed. Hashimoto speaks slowly, allowing the interpreter time. Even if the ship had zigzagged, I would have sunk her. I was too close. The range was under 2,000 yards. The solution was perfect. A hush falls over the courtroom. The prosecution's entire theory collapses in that single measured sentence. Hashimoto is dismissed. As he passes the American flag at the door, he stops and salutes it, crisp, correct, without hesitation. Then he leaves. The years pass slowly. Hashimoto returns to a ruined Japan. He leaves the Navy. He takes vows as a Shinto priest in a small, unremarkable shrine outside Kyoto. Every morning before the sun rises, he sweeps the stone paths, tends the tiny garden, lights incense, and prays. He prays for the souls of nearly 900 American sailors who died because of his torpedoes. He prays for his own family, lost to the fire that their ship helped deliver. He prays for peace. The guilt never leaves. It simply becomes part of him, quiet and constant, like the sound of the sea inside a shell. July 1991. Indianapolis, Indiana. A hotel ballroom filled with aging men in wheelchairs, faded dress blues, and survivor patches. Hashimoto, now 78, thin and silver-haired, walks through the door, alone. The room falls silent. Then one by one, every man stands. Every survivor. Every one of them. He bows deeply from the waist, hands at his sides. When he straightens, his voice is soft but clear. I came here to pray with you, for your shipmates, whose deaths I caused. No applause. No speeches, just tears running down weathered faces. Old enemies embrace. Hands that once aimed torpedoes now clasp shoulders. For the first time in 46 years, something breaks open inside Hashimoto. Not forgiveness, he does not ask for it. Not absolution, he does not expect it. Just recognition, shared pain, shared humanity. For the next 9 years, he travels when he can. He writes letters, he signs petitions. He appears before congressional committees beside the same men he once tried to kill. Again and again, he repeats the same truth. Captain McVay was not to blame. On October 25th, 2000, Commander Mochitsura Hashimoto dies peacefully in his sleep at the age of 88. 5 days later, October 30th, 2000, the United States Congress passes a formal resolution exonerating Captain Charles McVay III of all charges related to the loss of his ship. The man who delivered the fatal blow is the same man who helped restore, the captain's honor half a century later. Nearly 900 men never came home from that night in the Philippine Sea. Hundreds more floated for 4 endless days and nights, burned by the sun, poisoned by salt water, driven mad by thirst, stalked by sharks that circled in the dark. Only a handful were pulled from the water alive. It remains the single greatest loss of life at sea in the entire history of the United States Navy. And the Japanese submarine commander who caused it spent the final chapter of his life making certain that no American officer carried the blame alone. That is the final, perfect, heartbreaking irony of the Pacific War. Want to see the story of the American captain who was court-martialed for losing the ship that carried the atomic bomb? It's waiting for you next. Hit subscribe. We'll see you there.